A knife is one of the most important tools you can have on hand in the kitchen. Learning how to handle and care for your knife properly and safely is essential to comfort and enjoyment and proficiency in the kitchen. In fact, a lot of people don't even like to step foot inside of a kitchen because they don't enjoy the experience of using a knife and cutting foods. Once you learn how to properly handle a knife, those barriers are removed. In this video, we're going to talk about which knife or knives are important to have on hand, how to properly hold a knife, how to use a knife, and how to care for your knife. First, the best knife for you is going to be one that feels the most comfortable in your hands. So try to avoid shopping for knives online, although it's tempting. Go directly to the store and try the knives on for size. For example, European knives tend to be a little bit heavier, whereas Japanese knives tend to be a little bit lighter in weight. So get a sense for how the grip feels, what the weight feels like in your hand. You can use the Goldilocks approach here to see which one is the best fit for you. Second, if you want to invest in one good quality knife, then I recommend getting a 6 to 8 inch chef's knife. A chef's knife is very versatile in the kitchen in that it can cut a variety of foods from celery to carrots to cucumbers to apples and bell peppers. So investing in one good quality chef's knife should do the trick in the kitchen. How to properly hold a knife. There are safe and effective ways to hold a knife. The first way is to wrap all of your fingers and your thumb around the handle. This is your cutting hand, obviously. This is your guide hand. So you're gonna wrap your fingers and your thumb around the handle and just cut away. We're gonna go over the cutting techniques in just a second. The second way to hold a knife, the second option, is to take your index finger and your thumb and to place it on the heel, place them both on the heel of the knife. The part of the knife that's closest to you is the heel. You obviously wanna place your fingers above the blade. So your thumb and your index finger are on the heel of the knife just above the blade, and the rest of your 3 fingers will wrap around the handle. And then again, you're just going to cut. So the way that you hold a knife, whether it's your fingers and your thumb wrapped around the handle or your index finger and thumb on the heel with the remaining fingers around the handle, is completely up to you. It's a personal preference, whichever feels most comfortable to you. Before you start cutting, make sure that your cutting board is large enough to use to cut all the produce that you'll be cutting. And then also that it's secure to the counter. This is a safety precaution. So we love to use wooden cutting boards because they are easily stabilized compared to, say, glass, which can move and slip very easily. And we like wooden cutting boards better than plastic cutting boards because of plastic's potential harm on human and environmental health. So grab your cutting board, we can practice together. And first thing you're gonna do is get your grip on your knife, so whichever you prefer. I prefer to wrap my entire hand around the handle. And we're gonna practice what the most basic technique is a rolling technique. So from the rolling technique, you're gonna be able to slice, dice, or julienne, any types of cuts that you wish. The way that the rolling technique works is that the tip of the knife is on the cutting board. The knife never leaves the cutting board, and you're gonna roll back. So starting with the tip of the knife on the cutting board, pulling the knife back towards you, cutting through the food. So it's a backwards circular motion. So just practice without any food at all, keeping your other hand out of the way, and just practice rolling back, getting the feel of that wrist motion. Practice builds confidence. And then we can get some food. So a great food to start with is something like celery. It's pretty easy to slice. As you can see, celery has a round end and it has a flat surface. Whenever you have the opportunity, food is giving you this gift of a flat surface so that you can put the flat surface down on the cutting board. We're always going for a flat surface either to start or creating a flat surface in round objects so that flat surface stabilizes on the cutting board. This prevents any kind of slips, the food moving, your hand getting in the way. So you always want to start with a flat surface. So that celery has that flat surface. We're going to start there. And then the second safety factor is to always make sure your fingers are tucked under. This is really important so that we don't have any mishaps in the kitchen. Keep your fingers tucked under, so your knuckles are gonna be your guide. This is your guide hand, and you're just gonna hold the food and you're gonna move it back as you're cutting through the food. So using that circular motion, let's cut some celery. So this is called slicing. You can see how easy and efficient it is, and as you get closer to your guide hand, you can just move your guide hand back and continue cutting. Now, with foods that are odd shapes, like bell peppers or potatoes, or say sweet potatoes or squash, some of them are really big. It's hard to stabilize them on the cutting board. Number one, you always want to make sure that your knife is very sharp. This might sound like it's not the safest way to start, but it really is the safest way to start, just because having a sharp knife is going to help to easily pierce through that food and prevent any kind of slips, and it's going to make it much easier and safer for you to use the knife. So sharp knife is key. We're going to talk about sharpening your knife in just a moment. And then also, this is round, so it's obviously going to move around in the food. You want to have your hand positioned so that your fingers are out of the way. That's always number one. Your guide fingers are out of the way. And then position the knife to cut it in half, or cut perhaps a portion. You can always cut this end too. So cut it in half or cut a portion to get that flat surface. And then from there, you can cut and slice and guide with your hand using the rolling technique, as you can see here, and voila. Something like a pepper, again, keeping your knuckles as your guide and your fingers out of the way, just cut a bottom portion. So you can always pierce if you have a hard time cutting into something that is larger or harder. Start by piercing that food with the point of your knife, and then cut down to, again, create that flat surface. And then from there, you can cut into the pepper and either slice it, dice it, julienne, whichever you like. So the key here is consistency and safety. It's not about speed. The more you practice, the more you're going to build your confidence, the more control you're going to have, and the more you're going to be able to execute safely and quickly. Once you have your favorite knife on hand and you're using it regularly in the kitchen, you may want to invest in a honing tool. So this is a honing steel. A honing steel will help to maintain the shape of the blade. So you're going to set it upright, perpendicular on your countertop. I like to use the cutting board, again, just to keep it stable. And you're going to glide the knife along the honing tool 5 to 8 times on each side. And again, this just maintains the shape and the alignment of the blade. This does not sharpen the blade. For sharpening the blade, you'll want to sharpen your knives about once a year, and there are sharpening tools out there as well, like a whetstone, or they have electric sharpening tools. Keeping a knife sharp is essential for safety and precision in the kitchen. So the enjoyment of the kitchen is much greater when your knife easily cuts through food, and safety is much greater when you have a sharp blade. Now that you know the importance of having a good quality knife on hand, it's time to start practicing. Practice your holding technique, the rolling technique, slicing. Start with something simple like celery or carrots. The more you practice, the more confidence you're going to have in the kitchen, and the more efficient and enjoyable your culinary experience will be. Before you know it, you're going to be creating all kinds of delicious plant-based meals.